welcoming friends from the United States, friends from the UAE and the Middle East to this webinar today with His Excellency Yousif Ahmed Al Ali, who serves as Assistant Undersecretary for Electricity, Water, and Future Energy at the UAE Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. The UAE has long been a leader in adopting alternative and renewable energy, and today His Excellency will provide insights into the UAE's renewable and alternative energy journey and how businesses can become more involved in the future. This conversation falls under the auspices of the Business Council's recently launched Climate Change Task Force, which is focused on supporting efforts by the US and UAE governments to address the negative effects of climate change. Today's event could not be more timely. US Special Representative Presidential Envoy for Climate Change, John Kerry, was in the UAE just over the weekend, where he met with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces, as well as His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, UAE's Special Envoy for Climate Change. These meetings further solidify the strong climate change cooperation between the US and the UAE ahead of the Biden administration's historic Climate Change Summit on Earth Day later this month. I just want to read a couple of excerpts, if I may, quickly from the joint statement that was issued. Very, very critical. The two countries will strengthen the implementation of the Paris Agreement and promote the success of COP26 in Glasgow, mindful of the importance and urgency of raising global climate ambition. We each intend, each country, to take steps to decarbonize our economies in line with our national circumstances and economic development plans, including reducing emissions by the year 2030. Notably, both countries announced that they will closely make new investments in financing decarbonization across both the Middle East and North Africa region and the wider international community as priorities, and they will help the most vulnerable to adapt to the inevitable effects of climate change. And in this regard, the joint statement goes on to say that they're encouraged by new regional initiatives such as the Green Middle East Initiative by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The statement says we will focus particularly on our joint efforts between the US and the UAE on renewable energy, hydrogen, industrial decarbonization, carbon capture and storage, natural-based solutions, and low-carbon urban design, exemplified by model cities like Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, and the world's single largest solar facility in Noor in Abu Dhabi. We take note of opportunities in the UAE, such as the world's largest solar power cost, I should have said, such as the world's lowest solar power cost and significant carbon capture investments. The two countries will partner with the global community to take necessary steps to keep Paris-aligned temperature limit within reach, including through country-specific enhancements to nationally determined contributions. And the two countries recognize the strong climate efforts of many leading companies and will work closely with the private sector to mobilize the investment and transformative mitigation and adaptation technologies needed to stem the climate crisis and support the economy. As I said, we could not be more pleased to have our guests today just on the heels of this very historic visit to the region. Today's event is going to have about over 200 guests for the webinar, comprising business executives, government officials, and energy industry thought leaders. So this is very, very important for opportunities for American business and UAE business to further connect. Guests today include partners from the UAE Embassy in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Embassy in Abu Dhabi, the Israeli Embassy in Washington, D.C., the US State Department, the US Department of Commerce, the US Department of Energy, and states across the United States like Alabama, New York, Washington, and Virginia. We also have in attendance media representatives from the National, College Times, and Platts. I should note that this session is on the record. It is being live streamed, and a video recording of the event will be posted on YouTube, where many people will watch it in the coming days. The audience is welcome to submit questions through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, I'm now pleased to introduce His Excellency Yousif Ahmed Al-Ali. His Excellency Yousif Al-Ali is leading the sector of water, electricity, and future energy affairs in the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure in the United Arab Emirates. Through his role, he coordinates UAE efforts together with the sector, local stakeholders to create a sustainable energy mix that combines innovation and techno-commercial feasibility. He represents the ministry in many important boards and committees like the Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulations. Before joining the ministry, he was the executive director of Masdar's Clean Energy Unit and was responsible for achieving performance excellence in all areas of investment, greenfield development, bidding mergers and acquisitions, asset management, and operations for large-scale renewable energy projects, locally and globally. Mr. Ali is the chairman of Shams Power Company, a joint venture between Masdar, ADR, PBF, I have to get the acronym out, and Total. In addition, he sits on the boards of Krovno Green Energy, Bayuna Solar Energy PSC, and many others. Your Excellency, we could not be more pleased to have you with us today. Please, the floor is yours for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Danny, for the wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be here hosted in the UAE US Business Council. It's not my first time to participate in this important venue. I had the pleasure to participate and interact with yourself and the partners in the council, the business council. When it comes to the UAE, I think everybody knows that UAE represents the second economy in this part of the world, in this region, the second economy in the Arab world. We are also having almost one of the biggest power sectors in this region. So UAE today is heading toward almost 50 gigawatt of electricity capacity in the next few years. With this huge capacity that UAE have, we also have working on different fronts to reduce our carbon footprint when it comes to electricity production. So we have our clean energy program that consists of our nuclear program and consists of our successful renewable energy program. So today, assuming the 50 gigawatt of capacity, we almost have around 20% of that capacity coming from clean energy. So based on our strategy and targets for the year 2050, we are looking forward to having at least 50% of our electricity capacity coming from clean sources of energy. Also, when it comes to the other part, we will mainly depend on gas that have a low carbon footprint, and we'll depend also on clean coal with a smaller percentage. So UAE represents an important opportunity for investors worldwide to invest together with us in our energy sector, with more focus on the clean side, the clean energy side. So it's a huge business opportunity for everybody, and it is an open market that already has a lot of investors from all over the world. What I look out of this discussion here, maybe to convince our partners in the US to come here and invest in the UAE in the power sector.
Sir, thank you so much. You know, we have to start with the fundamentals, in my view, and start at the beginning. And the UAE has been on a journey. You've been very much, sir, a part of that journey, coming from Masdar as you have. why did the UAE, the third largest exporter of carbon based energy in the world, decide to embark on this journey, if you will, to renewables and alternative energy? Why, from your perspective and your understanding and your experience, why did you do it? Why did the country do it? What was the motivation?
Yani UAE always historically was in the forefront of innovation, the forefront when it comes to reducing the human impact on the environment. So UAE always in the forefront of these activities. So historically, we were one of the first to stop flaring natural gas in this region. This happened long time in the 70s, of course, with the support of our partners in the US and Europe and Japan. So we look at ourselves as a leader when it comes to conventional energy. We are a producer of energy. And to maintain this leadership, we have also to be cautious about the changes in these markets. So the market is changing. A bigger portion of energy will be produced by clean mean. And as a producer, as a leader producer, we need also to take a share of that important market. So we think is a natural evolution for us as a major exporter of energy worldwide. On the other side also, we are not only a producer of electricity, we are of energy, gas and oil. We are also committed to reduce our carbon footprints in all fronts. So when it comes to the electricity production, we are working there. We have our program of clean energy to reduce our carbon footprint. When it comes also to our industries, we always try to encourage efficiency improvement, adaptation of new technologies, adaptation of artificial intelligence to reduce our carbon footprint. And when it comes also to oil and gas, guess what? As a producer of oil, we are also have a very ambitious program to be among the lowest consumers of electricity in the production of oil and gas. So this is all across the value chain here in UAE. We try to reduce our carbon footprint. We are part of the global efforts to reduce the emissions of carbon and to maintain our temperature on Earth.
Sir, in a recent Business Council webinar, our dear friend Badr Olama, the Executive Director of UAE Clusters at Mubadala, stated that he expects global energy demand to more than double by 2050. And as you said in your opening remarks, your national energy strategy calls for 50% of the UAE's energy mix to come from clean energy by 2050. What role does renewable energy play in meeting these increasing energy needs globally? And then to meet this mix that you want to reach of having it be 50% of your overall, give us a little bit more a sense of how you think you're going to go to meet those goals and objectives and travel along the road on that journey.
Danny, we are hitting almost 20% in the next couple of years. 20% of clean energy in the next couple of years. So we are on that target, and we think we'll be able to achieve at least 50% by the year 2050. So when we decided to have this target, we looked at all the technologies available in the market, all the possibilities, including the intermittent source of clean energy, the nuclear, and also the evolution of the battery and storage technologies in general. And we came up based on what we see and what we forecast in future. We think we can achieve 50%, but this is a changing target. So it depends on the technology. If the technology evolves to provide us with a complete solution that makes renewable energy visible technically and commercially, why not? We may go and increase our target. But we always, it's not about only pricing, the economical side, of course, the economical side is very important. The environmental side is extremely important, but we also need to look at the electricity security. So electricity is a very important, I would say, parameter or very important player when it comes in the economy mix on the requirement for our economy to grow. So the security of our electricity is key. That's why we also thought about sources of electricity that can produce base load of electricity and has much lower need for fuel to come from outside or I don't know. This is something like nuclear. Nuclear is a base load that can provide you electricity for your industry 24/7 without any interruption. So these are the parameters that we looked at it when we decided to go with this target. Another thing, Dan, you have to keep in mind, yes, we have a target of 50%, but we're not just focusing on achieving that target. We are also focusing on the demand side management. We just announced our target when it comes to demand side management. We want to reduce our electricity demand by almost 40% compared to the business as usual scenario. And we are also working to decrease the demand of our water by almost 50%. So 40% decrease in electricity and 50% decrease in water consumption compared to business as usual. And on the other side, we are increasing our clean energy capacity to 50%. So we're working on both sides.
So let's get into this just a little bit. We have a question from the audience that says the incredibly important implications for your electricity grid of what you're planning to do. And to help our businesses understand how they might better connect with you and the ministry in the future, what are the key infrastructure priorities that you're envisioning that you might start implementing to accommodate this 50% shift that you're talking about?
You've seen over the last years, we have programs for the development of renewable energy capacities within the U.A.E, whether in Abu Dhabi or in the Emirate of Dubai or North Emirates. So in all these programs, we are it's an open competition for all the companies worldwide to come and participate by providing innovation that eventually allows them to provide us a very attractive economical offer for these projects. So it's an open tender. So I can mention, for example, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park. So far we have 5 phases of the solar park, and it was open for investors worldwide to come and compete for these technologies. In Abu Dhabi, the same fashion, starting from Shams Power project, the CSP, the concentrated solar project that was built by Masdar together with the Spanish-French consortium, going to other projects in Suihan that was built also by Japanese, Chinese consortium. In some of these projects, we also use American technologies. First Solar, for example, technology was used in the first solar project here in Abu Dhabi. So all these programs are open for market, for competition. So whoever will come and invest time to investigate the opportunity, to do the best design, and invest the time to give us the best offer, what we guarantee for them that they will get a fair chance to compete and win.
I understand, sir. And we brought a delegation a few months before COVID, and we met with officials in the ministry and elsewhere, and there was a lot of discussion of the innovative steps you're taking to deal with the better efficient use of your electricity, whether it's the metering, whether it's making sure that electricity isn't wasted at the home, at the individual outlet. Can you talk a little bit more about your technologies that you're looking for the future to help you better manage the grid and better manage your efficiencies of use?
So this is an important aspect, and it is part of our demand side management program. So we want to reduce water, and we want, because water is also linked with power here in this region, and we want to reduce the consumption in the different sectors. So what we are trying here to do, the program includes different initiatives, and one of the initiatives here is to have a national green code that get adopted and get implemented all across the United Arab Emirates, different municipalities in the United Arab Emirates. The green code will put certain specifications for materials and technologies to be used for industries, to be used for all the buildings that will come in the future. So this tackles the buildings that will come in future. We're working on this. We'll have the green code hopefully soon issued by all the municipalities, used by all the municipalities in the UAE. On the other side, other than the green code, we are also working hard when it comes to retrofit of existing building, because these buildings consumes most. The new buildings by nature consumes less because it's more efficient, more smart. We have also program when it comes to retrofit, and we have also American partners that are working with us on some of these opportunities, and we hope we'll be able to create the right legislation and the right attractive mechanism to get these companies, these innovative companies, to come here and offer their smart ideas in order to get it implemented. So we're working on these fronts. Some of the Emirates are already in the front of this thing. One of the successful programs that I can mention here, Shams Dubai, the solar roof systems in Dubai successfully implemented. We're working here to implement the same in all the other Emirates. One thing, Danny, I didn't highlight, I was probably not able to describe how innovative our sector. I mentioned nuclear, I mentioned the renewable. Renewables for us is solar PV and concentrated solar, whether in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai. And I forgot to mention a very important element for us, the waste to energy. We are one of the first who is establishing waste to energy projects in this region, commercial waste to energy projects in this region. So we are implementing the first project in Sharjah, 300,000 tons of waste that will be removed, and thus, the associated carbon emissions will be removed from the environment. Dubai has a huge program when it comes to waste to energy under implementation, and Abu Dhabi is an important innovative approach that UAE is taking. Beside that, Danny, also looking at the industry, one of the innovative projects that was implemented in the UAE, the carbon capture project. So we have, the steel industry by its nature produces a lot of CO2 as part of the process, of the chemical process. Steel industry produces a lot. So we installed the carbon capture plant here in Abu Dhabi, in the industrial area in Abu Dhabi, that captures the emissions, all the emissions that comes from the steel factory. Almost 800,000 tons of CO2 that get captured, removed from the air, and get piped through a pipeline to be injected in the oil reservoir. And ADNOC itself has now a very ambitious plan when it comes to carbon capturing and utilization. So you will see that we work on all fronts, industrial, the generation side, the demand side. So we're working on all fronts to reduce our carbon footprint. What we aim to get is almost 70% reduction in our emissions by 2050 compared to the business as usual scenario.
That's really, really fascinating and laudable. Thank you, sir, for underscoring all of that. You mentioned the regulatory framework, which, as you know, is so important. In the past, we have worked, the business councils worked closely with Estadama and some of the various emirate level efforts to set these new standards. And I think I heard you correctly. You said the Ministry of Energy will be implementing a green code for the whole UAE. So this will be a regulatory framework or scheme, if you will, that it comes from the federal level and applies to all of the UAE uniformly. Is that correct?
So we are working in partnership with all the stakeholders in the UAE in the development of this green code. So the green code will be the minimum requirements. So some of the Emirates maybe may elect to go beyond. So this will be the minimum federal requirement in the UAE for the buildings.
That's a wonderful model that I hope someone on your team talked to Secretary Kerry about. I would hope that he might bring some of those ideas back to utilize in the U.S. because you guys are always leaders here, and we hope to learn from you in the future in the U.S. Sir, let's talk a little bit about the nuclear program. So very, very exciting. My good friend Mohammed Al-Hamadi over at ENIC, I've worked with for at least the last decade. The Business Council's been involved since the beginning of the 123 agreement with Ambassador Al-Ataiba in Washington, D.C., getting that successfully through the U.S. Congress. The UAE successfully connected the first of its 4 reactors at Baraka to the grid just in the last year. And in the coming years, nuclear energy will provide for 1/4 of the UAE's electricity demand. Tell us a little bit about this accomplishment and what it means for the UAE going forward.
Danny, as I mentioned before in the beginning, we are targeting 50% of our energy to come from clean sources. And looking at today's technology, it's not possible to rely only on renewable energy. So renewable energy is an intermittent source of energy. And let's be realistic, if a cloud passes on the solar plant, suddenly it will stop producing, or the production will reduce dramatically. So it's very important to have a reliable source of clean energy to keep feeding our economy and to keep feeding our industrial sector. That's why we decided to go for a nuclear program. The nuclear program for us is not just a simple, a plan that we want to do. It comes with a lot of parts for us. It includes the development of expertise and skilled people from this nation to contribute toward this program. It's also consists of a complete development of a value chain that also helps the economy. It has a lot of positive spillover impact on the economy. So it comes with all these angles. So today you mentioned quarter of our energy will come from clean sources. What we envisage, what we forecast in the future, that nuclear will represent only 6% of our electricity capacity in the UAE. So 44% of our electricity will come from renewable energy, solar, mainly solar, probably enhanced with batteries and storage technologies, and 50% will come from gas and clean coal. So the nuclear will be a small portion, but you never know if the technology evolves. Then our decision on the mix can change. So we'll always consider security, environment, and economy in our decisions.
Let's talk about that just a second, because we got a number of questions in the chat box as a result. A couple, I'll just put them together for you. Do you have plans for nuclear power expansion beyond the 4 units that you're building at Baraka right today? Do you have any future plans? And does the small modular reactor fit in, and the technologies associated with that fit in with your plans for nuclear for the future, and also for hydrogen and desalinization? Just curious if you could say a few words about your future planning for nuclear.
I'm not aware of any future plan to expand beyond the 5.6 gigawatts, the 4 reactor. I'm not aware of it. Probably our friend Hamadi will know better. But as a principle, I mentioned. So as a principle, we are looking at 3 parameters: security, environment, and cost. If these things works well in the future for nuclear in comparison to other sources of energy, why not? So these are the important parameters that we look at all the time.
But you're not in talks right at the moment on small modular reactors, as far as you know, in any way, in any serious way.
I'm not aware of this discussion. Personally, I'm not aware of this discussion. Another thing you mentioned, hydrogen.
Yeah, please. Where hydrogen was next on my list of questions. As part of our climate change task force, we just did a webinar last week with Mubadala, ADNOC, and ADQ on the new Abu Dhabi Hydrogen Alliance. And that was a really, really fascinating webinar. Sir, I didn't know we had green, blue, brown, yellow. I didn't know we had all these different colors of hydrogen energy. And I learned so much from it. And I know that you're part of the alliance as well. So talk to us about how the Hydrogen Alliance fits into Abu Dhabi's long-term plans here, please.
So hydrogen, renewable energy, as I mentioned before, has its own limitation. That's why, we have to look at other sources of energy that can be used in a dispatchable way, and it can be transported, it can be used for our transportation system. Here, hydrogen comes with a lot of opportunities. Hydrogen can be used for the transportation, can be used to produce power, and can be produced also for the industry. So U.A.E. is a producer of hydrogen since long time as part of our refining business and as part of our petrochemical business. I still remember the hydrogen unit I used to operate in the old days when I used to work in the petrochemical sector. So we produce it, we use it in the petrochemical sector. So we are well positioned for any future evolution in the hydrogen. So let's be realistic with today's situation with hydrogen. Hydrogen today is expensive, but U.A.E. has all the requirements to be one of the leading producers of hydrogen when the right time comes. So what do we have? We have conventional energy, we have gas. So gas can be a source of, you can reform gas to produce hydrogen. We have industry, petrochemical industry that requires hydrogen. So we have somebody of takers other than the power sector. We have cheap sources of electricity through the renewable energy program, where we scored the lowest cost of electricity worldwide, and also through a reliable source of electricity that we have through our nuclear program. So we have all the ingredients to be in the forefront of hydrogen when the right time it comes. So what we did so far when it comes to hydrogen. So we are seriously looking at hydrogen. In Dubai, we implemented Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, DEWA, implemented a pilot plan for hydrogen that will start producing soon. This hydrogen will be used for power and also can be used for transportation. In Abu Dhabi, Masdar and the partners in Abu Dhabi also planning to have another pilot for hydrogen that probably will be built in Masdar city. So the alliance, Abu Dhabi Alliance for Hydrogen, will look at the whole value chain of hydrogen. So what we need to make ourselves as a leader when it comes to hydrogen. So what do we need to work on when it comes to technology? What do we need to work on when it comes to policies and regulations? That hydrogen. So we look also at possible consumers of hydrogen. We look at the economical part of economical side of hydrogen. What we want to achieve, what economics we want to achieve with hydrogen to start the bigger industrial, I would say, involvement, or the bigger phase, or the next phase of hydrogen production. So we're looking at all these elements, and it's promising, but I think hydrogen will require some time until it get to the stage where it can fly. And I think U.A.E., with all these efforts, with all these coordinated efforts, will be ready for that time.
Well, sir, we talked about nuclear, solar, hydrogen. Is there anything else? Biofuels, wind, any other on the renewable track that you want to mention right now?
I think we just went over everything. Wind, yes, of course. Being part of Masdar, I know that Masdar is working diligently to see what possibilities we have for wind. U.A.E. in general have a low average wind speed, But technology evolves. So we have now turbines that operates with low wind speed. But let's see.
And I understand you're the Federal Ministry of Energy, so you're not so much focused on what you might be doing and what your companies might be doing in other countries, exporting, if you will. You're more focused internally on the UAE for the future. Or do you want to say a few words about what you might be doing in partnership in other countries like the US or Britain or China for the future?
So UAE, Danny, coordinates the efforts between the stakeholders here within the different emirates in the UAE, and when it comes to regulations, when it comes to the different aspects of the energy sector here in UAE, we are also the main player when it comes to international affairs, when it comes to energy related matters internationally. So in the ministry, we are part of the GCC-IA, the interconnection with the GCC countries. So today, UAE have almost capacity of 1,200 megawatt of connection with the GCC-IA to Saudi Arabia. And we are also having a connection with Oman. We use these connections as buffer for our for security buffer for our electricity, and even for trading, for future trading. Beside the GCC, we are also in discussion among Arab League countries toward creating an energy market for the Middle East. Let's be frank here, we want a bigger market for this region, for all the countries in this region, including Israel also in this energy market, and all of us to collaborate and work together to export energy to other markets, to Europe. When it comes to renewable energy, we are in a good position to produce these energies in a very low price. So we can export this energy to other places in the world where renewable energy electricity is more expensive.
And of course, the historic Abraham Accords that you signed with Israel, it has allowed and opened up the opportunity for you to start working in developing joint energy sources with the state of Israel, correct?
Yes, correct. And we have many companies here in the UAE are very active in the Israeli market. I'm an ex-Masdar, so I can mention that Masdar is very active, and Israeli market represents a very good opportunity for us. It's a well-regulated market that we think it's a safe investment for us. And as an ex-Masdarian, I tell you, so Masdar is really in advanced stage of discussion to be in the Israeli market.
Understand. Let's just shift gears a little bit here. We have a few minutes left, and I want to sort of shift to the human factor, because as you know, that's so important in all that we do. The UAE's alternative and renewable journey in energy is not just about investing in physical infrastructure, but it's also about people. And indeed, it's an important part of broader UAE efforts to diversify the UAE your people for the future.
So this takes me back to the establishment of Masdar. If you remember, Danny, when Masdar was established in 2006, 2007, so we had two sides of Masdar. We had the commercial company, the company that will do the implementation. The other side of Masdar was Masdar Institute in partnership with MIT. From the US. So the Masdar Institute was focusing on the development of the people that will have the academic background and will have the expertise to feed this sector. So Masdar Institute evolves now to be part of Khalifa University. So the people that got educated in Masdar Institute and the people who had the opportunity as part of Masdar Institute also to serve or to work in different projects together with the professors in MIT, these guys came with a lot of experience, and now they are serving whether in Abu Dhabi, in Masdar, in Department of Energy, the different companies in Dubai. So these people are serving in all the different players here in the market. But one thing I want to highlight, Danny, UAE is an open country. Yes, we focus on the development of our people. We want them to be educated. We want to create jobs for them by qualifying them to take these opportunities, these jobs. But UAE is an open market. UAE is focusing on attracting talents from all over the world. So for us to continue our growth, to continue our innovation, we need to attract talented people from all over the world. So for example, in Masdar Institute, in Masdar itself, we recruited students from Masdar Institute that comes from different American, Canadians, coming from different nationalities. So talented people who graduated from Masdar Institute from different nationalities now, they are serving the economy here in UAE, and others, of course, they are working in different parts of the world now.
Sir, when Secretary Kerry visited the UAE this weekend, he visited along with Sultan Al Jaber, IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency from the UN that's headquartered out at Masdar. Can you say a few words about the importance of having IRENA established in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, and what that means to you?
In 2006, Danny, we were the first nation, oil producing nation, that pushes the envelope when it comes to renewable energy, to reduction of emissions in 2006. And, eventually we were elected, or we were selected by the international community to host IRENA, just because of our efforts when it comes, our sincere efforts when it comes to mitigation of climate change impact, and because of the support of the trust of the international community in our sincere efforts. So I was part of that time when we were able to convince international community to select Abu Dhabi to be the host for IRENA, and I think it was the right decision. It passes the right message to everywhere, to everybody, that the whole world will be supporting you when it comes. If somebody get committed to reduce emissions, get committed to renewable energy. So this was recognized by the international community. So today, if you look at the impact of IRENA, as part of the activities of IRENA for the last years, many projects got funded and got implemented with the efforts of IRENA. You know that UAE committed $250 million of financing, of soft financing, as part, to be channeled under IRENA, and many projects got implemented worldwide. You today look at the impact of IRENA really, if you just search in the internet, Danny, sometimes I do presentations, so I search in the internet to get information. The right reference for information about renewable energy, about the assessment of the sector in any country, just pick a country in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, wherever you want, you will find comprehensive research by IRENA about the sector. So IRENA became a reference for any investors who are looking to invest in these countries. IRENA started also doing a lot of consultancy works to help communities to establish regulations, to do capacity building. So IRENA today, for me at least, plays a very important role to support countries to adopt renewable energy programs, and also in the implementation.
Well, it's quite notable that the UN chose the UAE as its first country in the Arab world or in the Gulf world, if you will, to have a new UN agency, and particularly this one focused on renewable energy for the future. So it's really, really a very, very critical and important development. Sir, just to sort of bring it full circle here, we on the call today, we have member companies in the realms of infrastructure, logistics, energy, tech, finance, and many, many more. And I know that you have a strategic review underway in the ministry for the next 20 or 30 years, if you will, of your renewable energy plan. How can our companies, our member companies, connect with the efforts of the U.A.E. Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure to help support your goals, support your review process, and help you move forward on the journey? What's the best course of action for businesses to take to engage with the ministry? Should they contact you directly? Is there a central point of contact? Please give us your best advice.
Danny, I'll be blunt with you here. I'll be blunt with you. Please allow me to be blunt. You know that if you look at the market, at the energy market, most active companies are coming from Europe, coming from Asia. So the American companies are not that active in this segment of the market. Maybe in the consultancy, yes, strategic consulting, probably. Naturally, you know, the biggest four consultants are from the US. But when it comes to technical consultancy, and when it comes to companies that does engineering and companies that does investments in power sectors, the American markets are very passive when it comes to this part of the world, unfortunately. I don't know what we can do to encourage the big power companies in the US to open representation here in the UAE and to come and invest and compete in this market. You know, American companies are used to competition. The American market is very competitive. So we want to attract them to our market here to compete and push the envelope higher, you know, come with innovation, come with lower pricing. They should come and compete here in this market. So if you look at the power sector, at the privatization market, we don't see any American market active here in the sector.
Well, so I know it's a priority for the UAE government to bring more American companies across the board to the UAE in the future. I know that His Excellency Ambassador Al-Ateba and his team, Saud Al-Nawais and others are working on this. Perhaps we should work closely with you and your colleagues in the future to think about bringing a trade delegation in this area, and work with the US Embassy as well in the commercial section there to bring a trade delegation in this area of American companies for the future. Once COVID, of course, subsides a little bit this summer and into the fall, I think it would be a useful next step on this journey, if you will. Just to sort of wrap it up here, in the next 2 weeks, His Excellency Sultan Al Jaber will be partaking in the Climate Change Summit, as we discussed, that President Biden is hosting. And ahead of this conference, and in light of what just occurred in the UAE with Secretary Kerry this weekend, any key points you want people to take away from today's discussion about the UAE's journey in this area in alternative and renewable energy and its commitments to the climate change mitigation efforts? Just any bottom line. I'll give you this. This is your chance to sum it up and tell us what you want everybody to walk away with, please.
Danny, just for the message I want to pass, that we are through the implementation of our strategy. We have very ambitious program that is under implementation now and still will grow up more by year 2050. 50% of our electricity will come from green sources. When it comes to generation, when it comes to consumption, we reduce our electricity consumption by 40% and we reduce our water consumption by 50% compared to business as usual scenario. When it comes to innovation, UAE is a true partner. I mentioned the waste to energy opportunities we have. I mentioned the carbon capture opportunities. And I mentioned our early works on our ambitious plan when it comes to hydrogen. This all together represents a very important opportunity for everybody. So UAE is really implementing a very ambitious program to reduce our carbon footprint. We will go together with our partners to Glasgow, and we hopefully will be able to convince everybody, that sustainability can be a way for growth, for economical growth. You can, especially after COVID-19, I think we can go back to our growth with a more sustainable approach. So we always rely on partnerships, true partnerships, and US is a true partner for us that always inspires us and always support us when it comes to innovation, when it comes to industrial evolution. You were part of our oil and gas sector. You were part of our power sector. Yes, it's just, to be also fair. Of course, companies are participating in the power sectors through the supply of equipment. So General Electric and other companies well positioned in this market and continue to innovate to help us to reduce our emissions. The innovation that happens in the US and we implemented here help us to achieve our targets.
Well, sir, if anyone can do it, my 30 or 40 years of working with the UAE and particularly in the last 15 years, very, very closely, it's under your wise leadership, your innovative focus and approach to developing talent. You all will achieve it, and you all will bring a global leadership to this very, very critically important issue for the future. It's the most important issue that we all face, and our children and our grandchildren all face for the future. So thank you for all that you're doing, sir. Thank you for spending time with us today on the webinar. We look forward to following up with you in the near future about more opportunities for our companies to connect. If I could just quickly give a word, tomorrow we're hosting a webinar at 9 a.m. in the United States, 5 p.m. in the UAE on China and the Gulf and challenges and opportunities for partnership. We're doing that jointly with our sister organization in Washington, the Middle East Institute. We are also hosting another webinar on Thursday with Wasim Saeed, Advisor for Policy and Strategy at Food and Water Security Office in the UAE Ministry of Presidential Affairs. That webinar will be Thursday morning at 10 a.m., 6 p.m. UAE time. And these are all part of our continuing series to promote a better understanding of opportunities for cooperation between our American and Emirati colleagues. So again, His Excellency Yousif Ahmed Al Ali, thank you so much for your time today, for your insights, and we look forward to talking with you again soon. Take care and all best wishes.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.